Wall Street veteran Bernard Madoff has been arrested and charged with running a $50 billion Ponzi scheme.
Congress wants to know what caused the Enron meltdown.
Now, while the collective rage currently is focused on WorldCom,
Tyco CEO Dennis Kozlowski was convicted of looting hundreds of millions of dollars.
This is one of the biggest fraud cases ever.
Their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
Find out more on this week's episode of White Collars, Red Hands.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of White Collars, Red Hands. I'm Kishan.
And I'm Nina.
And, you know, it's a little unconventional that we just jumped in today, right? Well, it's because, if you didn't know, I think, actually, let me make sure my week structure is correct. This is coming out the day after Christmas when you're listening to this. Nina's very festive. I don't have any Christmas stuff to wear, so I didn't wear it. But we are recording this early. We're recording this the day after we recorded our last episode. So just so you know, we're taking a week off after this for the holidays. And Nine, are you going back to Ohio for Christmas?
I am not. I'm going to celebrate Christmas in New York City with my best friend.
Oh, nice. So, well, I guess to say both of us are away from home right now. So we know that we just took 4 weeks off in between seasons. We didn't want to take another 2 weeks off. So instead, today, we're doing a little bonus episode where we're catching up on some of our previous stories from over the 5 years that we've been recording this podcast. You know, there's a lot of dangling storylines that we leave at the end of episodes sometimes, and we're wrapping some of those up for you today, like they're little presents.
Yes.
So let's start unwrapping. We each have 5. And Nina, why don't you go first? Which storyline are you wrapping up for us?
I am going to wrap up the story of Jen Shah. We talked about her on season 11, episode 3 in May of 2023, and it was called Return to Real Housewives. All right. So, just to recap Jen Shah and what her story is. So Jen Shah is a former cast member of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. She and her husband, Sharif Shah, built a life together in Salt Lake City, Utah with their 2 sons, and it seemed like they were living a happy life. The couple was wealthy, and when fans would watch The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, it seemed like Jen had it all going for her. However, her world came crumbling down in March of 2021 when she was arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Shaw and her co-conspirators had a telemarketing scheme that was targeted at the elderly. They would promise business services to victims, but would provide no service at all and would just scam people out of their money. Shaw was actually arrested while filming Real Housewives, which was quite the spectacle. She ended up pleading guilty and was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison. Now, we did cover this episode a while ago. We covered it in 2023. It's been over 2 years since we have done that episode. So where is Jen now? That's a good question. Actually, news about Jen Shah has been trending because, well, trending at the time that this episode was filmed. I'll say that. But Jen's been trending because she was actually spotted outside of prison. Jen was released from prison on December 10th, 2025. She only served a little over 2.5 years of her sentence. Since her release, she has been spotted in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's unknown if she is completely free or if she's been put into a halfway house for the time being, or if she's on supervised release. We're not really sure what, but she has been spotted outside of the prison. She and her husband remain married. And at this point, I do not know if Jen will be returning to the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, but the show is still airing.
Wait, it's still airing? How long did these things go on for? These housewives, like until no one watches it anymore? Is it that kind of show? I'm unfamiliar.
I've never really been super invested in. I've never actually watched The Real Housewives. I've never been very invested in that program. What I know that it seems like something I would watch. I just haven't, you know.
Yeah, you just seem like someone who'd be really interested in that, Nina. Maybe you should get into it.
You know what? I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to it, but right now the Real Housewives, or no, I'm sorry. Right now the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives has me on a chokehold.
Okay, another wife-centric reality show.
It's just holding me down and taking me for all I've got. You know, that's what Secret Wives of Mormon.
I don't want to explore that with you. Well, it's so interesting that you brought up the Real Housewives first, because we've had, as your episode said, that was the return to Real Housewives. The OG Real Housewives episode we did was on the Girardi family, which is actually my first update. It was on Tom Girardi and his wife.
I'm shocked you picked this one.
Believe it or not, this is actually the second update on my emergency update episode I did when you had to take a day off due to sickness, I believe. I updated then, and there's been further updates. So we covered Tom Girardi and his wife, Erica Jane, in season 5, episode 2, all the way back in October of 2021.
Damn.
And we discussed how Tom Girardi, the lawyer and sugar daddy to his wife, Erica, who both became famous as characters on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. At the end of our episode, Tom was awaiting his trial proceedings after using his client settlements as a personal piggy bank, stealing $15 million to fund his and his wife's expensive lifestyle. So Tom is an old man and was, in our opinion, playing senile to get off the hook by being ruled incompetent to stand trial. That's where we left at the end of our episode. In our 2023 update episode, I shared that Tom was likely to be found unfit to stand trial after he received a formal diagnosis of Alzheimer's, but that it was under scrutiny from other psychologists. Well, since then, there have been more updates. In January of 2024, Tom was found to be competent to stand trial as prosecutors argued that he was exaggerating his symptoms. Even though Tom's lawyers claimed that he was living in the memory care unit of a nursing home at the time. He also had an outburst in court telling one of the federal prosecutors, "Fuck you," at one point. I don't know if he was just angry or if that was actually to support his claim. The judge did say that he noticed that he did have some impairment through the trial, but that he could still go about the process.
He's old.
Yeah. He's in his 80s. Yeah. In August of last year, a jury convicted Tom on 4 counts of wire fraud. He was sentenced to over 7 years in prison on the day of his 86th birthday. So he's 87 now. He was ordered to pay $2.3 million in restitution and a $35,000 fine. In addition, David Lira, Tom's stepson, was also found guilty and sentenced to 4 months in prison for attempting to cover up one of the settlement thefts perpetrated by Girardi. So Girardi still kicking, though. He's still alive in prison, and he's been serving his prison sentence for over a year now.
6 more to go.
6 more to go. Yeah, I got to tell you, I don't think he's going to make it.
He'll probably get released in a year or two. If he gets sick enough, they'll probably just release him.
Yeah, his doctors were, or his doctors, his lawyers were really fighting for him to be able to like serve his sentence in the memory care unit that he was in. But basically, the judge thought he was exaggerating his symptoms, and then a psychologist that they had evaluate him, who said that he was competent to stand trial, was also like, I mean, they have old people in prison. They make accommodations for people with mental disorders in prison all the time, so he'll be fine. Ship him off.
Damn.
And that's where he is now.
Damn.
So justice was served.
Yeah, no, in that case, I do believe, I agree, justice was served. All right, well, let's talk about how justice actually, you know what? Here's another example. I don't know if I want to say justice was served, but there is justice or an attempt at justice in this next update. All right, so we are going to be talking about thieving parents and the Coogan Law. We covered this on season 12, episode 2 of June of 2023. So where we left off in our episode, like taking money from a baby, We talked about how children in the entertainment industry often do not see the money that they worked for because their parents have spent it all. The first person to take their parents to court over this was Jackie Coogan, who was discovered by Charlie Chaplin in the early 1900s. Coogan had worked for a long time in the film industry, and when he turned 18, he went to draw money out of his bank account, only to find that the money was not there. He took his mother to court, and because of this, the Coogan Law was made. The law requires that parents of child performers set aside 15% of the child's earnings to an account for them to access when they become an adult. In our episode, we highlighted 3 performers whose parents had wrongfully spent their money. In that episode, we highlighted Shirley Temple, Jewel, and Gary Coleman. All of these performers came to find out that their parents had wrongfully spent their children's hard-earned money, leaving them absolutely penniless when they entered adulthood. Now, Jewel was the exception to this because Jewel was an adult when she became famous, but she had made her mother her manager, and her mother in turn embezzled $100 million from her. Now, while this law is still active and in place, it doesn't seem to be followed super strictly, and we still see cases where parents frivolously spend their child's hard-earned money. Now, what does that look like now? These people, 2 of these people are dead that I just talked about.
Shirley Temple's not still alive? What?
Huh?
I said Shirley Temple's not still alive? What?
R.I.P. girl. You did a lot for us. No, Shirley Temple has been long gone. Gary Coleman also, R.I.P. Jewel's alive and kicking. But where we are now, it doesn't really seem like there would be much of an update to this. However, a new medium. This was a medium when this was happening when we recorded the episode, but I, A, don't think it was as popular, and B, I don't think people really thought about it or were really talking about it yet. But a new medium has entered the chat, social media. Yes. With family influencers on the rise, many have called into question how children who are being featured on their family's channels are being compensated. And this isn't even just children of influencers who are used in their content. Because, like, we see families who are family influencers. We have the LeBrants, the Green family, the Collins kids family, who you would not know who any of those people are.
Nope.
But they have enormous followings, and their children are really the root to their content. But we also have child creators. Like, you have those kids that I don't really know the kid creators off my head. Probably a good thing.
I know quite a few child creators myself. My mom's one of them.
But you know, you have the kids that review the toys. Even today at work, we were playing a video on YouTube. We were practicing their Christmas performance, and there's a video that they follow where it's like a little girl singing Feliz Navidad, and she has like a whole channel of songs that she sings. So there comes into the question that we didn't have before: how are these children whose parents are using them to create content, child creators, are they being compensated? So, and another thing that's like weird about this too is that a lot of these family influencers, they like keep having kids because they get more views. It's like one of the top things that like brings people to your content is like having babies and getting married. So these people just keep having babies. It's weird. Anyways. Protections for child entertainers, since this is being called into question, protections for child entertainers has expanded in many states, but 4 states now have laws that are specifically to protect content creators who are minors. Illinois was the first state to enact these laws. It was then followed by Minnesota, Utah, and California. Utah specifically, because there's a lot of Mormon influencers that use their families. Also, what was that lady's name?
The Duggars.
No, Ruby Frankie. Ruby Frankie was a parent influencer who within the last 2 years was convicted of child abuse. and she was really horrifically abusing her children.
It wouldn't be a fun holiday update episode without child abuse.
Yeah, she was from Utah, and I'm pretty sure it was the Ruby Frankie case that pushed Utah to put these laws in place. But in California, Demi Lovato was actually a really big advocate for this. If you don't know who that is, she was a child star. She's still a singer to this day. And there are pictures of her and Governor Gavin Newsom, when he's signing the law into motion. And Governor Gavin Newsom was the governor of California, was quoted saying, "A lot has changed since Hollywood's early days, but here in California, our laser focus on protecting kids from exploitation remains the same. In old Hollywood, child actors were exploited. In 2024, because that's when this was signed into place, it's now child influencers. Today, that modern exploitation ends through 2 new laws to protect young influencers on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and other social media platforms." So hopefully the rest of the 50 states will follow suit and children across the nation will be protected.
Nice.
But it was the majority of the states have expanded their laws. I think there were only like 12 to 16 that have not changed it at all.
Well, I guess the next one, I have something that's also still pretty awful. But thank you to Katie. Thank you to Katie H, who has been diligent about sending us follow-ups on this story, and originally gave us the story of Bob Dean and his terrible hurricane nursing home story that happened. And we covered it in season 8, episode 3 in September of 2022, a while ago now, almost 3 years ago. And where we left off, Bob Dean had over 800 elderly residents from 7 of his nursing homes cramped into a warehouse that was criminally underprepared to support them to wait out the effects of Hurricane Ida in Louisiana. What happened there is truly horrific. I'm not going to go into what it was about. If you want to, go ahead and check out the episode, but it's pretty bad. And he had also misappropriated about $4 million from his accounts after his nursing home licenses were revoked in the aftermath of this whole incident. During my 2023 update episode, I shared that Bob Dean was also diagnosed with dementia, just like Tom Girardi, and he was released to the care of his wife, and that it had stopped the court proceedings, and at that time, it seemed likely he would get off scot-free, didn't really know if he would ever be held liable. Well, in July of 2024, he ended up pleading guilty, or not guilty, he pleaded no contest to 15 charges related to the warehouse incident, including cruelty to the infirm. Unfortunately, this plea deal carried no prison time for the 70-year-old, as the judge deferred a 20-year sentence and instead handed down 3 years of probation to Bob Dean. Dean did, however, feel some pain in his pockets as the judge slapped him with more than $1 million in fines and greater than $300,000 in restitution to be paid to the Department of Health, which would then reimburse nursing home Medicaid payments made by the residents that were in the warehouse and his nursing home facilities. The victims also got a little bit of money back. They settled a class action lawsuit in October of 2024, which awarded them collectively $8.2 million.
Okay, well, I'm glad some justice was served, but he definitely should be in jail.
Yeah, he did not go to prison, and a lot of people are like, he should be in prison.
No, he 100% should be in prison. That was wild what he did.
Yeah, it's pretty evil and pretty awful. But that now seems to be, I don't think we're going to get any more updates from that. So that is the end of Bob Dean's story.
All right, so the next person that I am going to be talking about is Kwame Kilpatrick. We did his episode on season 13, episode 7 in November 2023. So where we left off, this was actually one of our most viewed TikToks and actually one of my favorite episodes that we have done. Kwame Kilpatrick, the former mayor of Detroit. Kilpatrick was mayor of Detroit from 2002 to 2008. During his time as mayor, he was ranked as one of the 5 worst mayors by Time magazine. And Kilpatrick lost a lot of favor with the citizens of Detroit because he wanted to cut funding to the zoo and other community building programs in the city to save money. all while using the city's credit card on frivolous expenses. Kilpatrick, he was using these for like spa days, expensive dinners, traveling, like things he didn't need to be spending the money on. Kilpatrick also fired members of the police department unfairly because they disagreed with him. And when going to court over this, he was asked on the stand if he and his chief of staff, Christine Beatty, were having an extramarital affair. Both of them denied this and lied under oath. This got Kilpatrick in lots of trouble. He was put on probation, and then he violated his probation. Violating his probation sent him to jail, making him the first mayor of Detroit to go to jail while serving as mayor. While in prison, it was found out that he used his powers to get a friend special deals with the city's water department, where Kilpatrick received over $1 million in kickbacks for getting his friend the job. It is also believed that he was involved with the murder of Tamara Green, another woman that he was probably having an affair with. He was sentenced to 28 years in prison, and then during that time, he reached out to Donald Trump and asked to be pardoned, and he was pardoned by Donald Trump. So he only served 7 years of his 28-year sentence. So where are we now? He's been out and about since 2021. So after Kilpatrick was pardoned by Trump in 2021, he went back to his life in Michigan. Kind of seemed like things went relatively back to normal. He's not going to be able to get a job or anything like that, but his wife's a lawyer. He was doing speaking engagements, things like that. I think he might have written a book, so he had money coming in. But since the president pardoned him, Kilpatrick made sure that he helped get him reelected in 2024, which was successful. When Kilpatrick was sentenced to prison, he was ordered to pay a restitution of $1.7 million to the citizens of Detroit, money which the government has had a very hard time getting. When Kilpatrick was first sent to prison, the government seized his pension and another account that was associated with the city, which was valued at around $6,000. Although Kilpatrick has not paid his restitution, he has leased a 2023 Infiniti QX80 SUV, which is worth $89,819. And his home is worth over $1 million. Now, granted, he does have a wife who is a lawyer. But this is kind of changing with his restitution because his mother, former Congresswoman Carolyn Cheeks Kilpatrick, has recently died, and the feds are eyeing his inheritance as a way for him to pay back his restitution. Now, he has tried to negotiate deals for his restitution to be dropped to $155,000, but to no avail. By the looks of things, Kilpatrick could get a hefty sum from his mother. She owned multiple homes. She had a retirement fund with the city, and she also owned $15,000 $15,000 in Apple stock back in 2010, which should now be valued in the six-figure range. So she's got some money. I think he only has one brother, so he should be getting quite a bit of inheritance money from her death. But only time will tell if the money will end up in Kilpatrick's bank account or the government's. But he is fighting hard to not get that money. Or to not let the government get that money.
Yeah, they're probably going to get that money, but
I mean, I don't know how they don't just seize his assets. So
yeah, I don't know.
I'm not 100% sure.
Bureaucracy. My next update is on Pete Rose, who we covered in season 6, episode 2, all the way back in January of 2022. And
Was he there?
yeah, so this one's a little bit of a pet project for me. As some of you may know, I'm a big baseball fan, which is part of the reason that we have done no less than 3 episodes on or closely related to baseball players over the course of this podcast. More than 3 years ago, we covered... What are you laughing about?
About how I thought that Shohei Ohtani was deaf.
And that's why you needed an interpreter. He was just Japanese. I forgot that happened. You could have let me forget that, but I'm glad that you reminded me. But yeah, more than 3 years ago, we covered Pete Rose, who is the all-time MLB hit leader still to this day. He's also the last player manager in history who both managed the team while still playing for them. And by statistics is one of the best to ever play the game. The only issue is that he was found to be betting on baseball through illegal bookies and also maybe doing some drug stuff that was never fully, completely, solidified. But that betting is not only illegal in the law sense because sports betting at the time was illegal. Not like now where there's an ad for it every 30 seconds on everything I fucking watch.
Now everybody's doing it while on the clock at work.
It's just crazy to me. But it was also strictly against the rules of the MLB. Because of this, he was blacklisted from baseball and was never allowed to be up for the Hall of Fame vote, despite appealing to every commissioner of the league since he was banned to please let him back in so that he could be in the Hall of Fame. In September of 2024, Pete Rose passed away. And partially pressured by Donald Trump, of all people, the current commissioner of baseball, Rob Manfred, removed Pete Rose from the blacklist posthumously in May of this year. Donald Trump was a big advocate for getting Pete Rose off of the Major League Baseball blacklist. I don't think Donald Trump likes baseball, but neither does Rob Manfred, actually. So
We just have so many other things to worry about.
He's always talking about some shit. I don't know. So this means that Pete Rose is now eligible for the Hall of Fame induction, or is eligible for Hall of Fame induction for the first time ever. He will have to make it via an unconventional route, as he won't get a chance for votes from the normal committee that votes every year, because he already fell off the timetable for that, and will instead need to be considered by the Classic Era Committee, which inducts people like well after they fall off the main list, like usually really old players that no one knows the name of. But Pete Rose's first chance won't be until 2027. That's the next time they vote on a classical era induction to the Hall of Fame. So if that happens and we are still around, I guess you'll hear the outcome from us then, if he actually makes it in.
In your opinion, how likely would that be?
It's hard to say. I think that, so a lot of the people who took steroids aren't in the Hall of Fame because people won't vote for them because they consider them cheaters. So like A-Rod, probably not going to make it in the Hall of Fame. Barry Bonds, probably the best player of all time, will not make it into the Hall of Fame. Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, a bunch of people. People see Pete Rose a little differently. They tend to forgive him more because supposedly he never voted against himself. When he made a bet on baseball, he never voted against himself. So people are like, well, you should be able to bet on your team when you play for the team. So I think it's 50-50. I actually don't know.
That'll be interesting.
But people seem to forgive him more easily than they do the people who took steroids in the steroid era of baseball. So
that's kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, I don't know why people see it as less like having more integrity than taking steroids. When, by the way, taking steroids was good for baseball because people were like not watching baseball as much anymore. And when these freaking roided out monsters of men started slamming baseballs 500 feet on a consistent basis, so many people started watching baseball again. And then they only cracked down on it after they had everyone come back.
And I think all sports should be allowed to have steroids. It would be a lot more fun to watch.
I mean, the problem is that steroids are also illegal. So, like, you can't be like, oh, yeah, you can't. You need a prescription for steroids. You can't just, so you have to buy them illegally. You can't just go pick up steroids.
I mean, I don't know how I thought people were getting them.
Yeah, no, you have to, like, go to a drug dealer and you have to buy steroids if you want to do steroids.
I did not know.
So I think they probably couldn't do that, but you know, if there's a place where there are other places where it's completely legal. So if you want to start like a steroid like Mexico League, do it. Everyone has to accept the risks because there's a bunch. And if that's what you want to do, then do it.
Interesting. I had no idea. I don't know why I didn't know that. All right, the next person I'm going to be talking about is Sean Kingston. We did his episode, season 17, episode 9 of December 2024. So we did it a year ago. So Sean Kingston, the Jamaican-American singer who brought us the hits Beautiful Girls and Eeny Meeny, and that's about it.
Fire burning on the dance floor.
What?
There's a shorty fire burning on the dance floor.
Okay, that one too.
Yeah, you can't forget that. He's got 3 songs, Nina. You can't leave off a third of them.
I forgot. Yeah, he's finally gotten his sentencing. We covered his episode in Trappings of Fame, Sean Kingston and LOP. Kingston had gotten in trouble for a scam that he was running with his mother, Janice Turner. Kingston would reach out to luxury companies on social media and would ask them for products that he would then feature on his own platforms so that other celebrities could potentially see and buy the product. When making the deals, he would invite them to his homes in South Florida, wine and dine them, give them a whole experience. Many companies agreed with the agreement and gave Kingston their products. Now, usually in the agreement, Kingston was supposed to pay them at some point for the product. The only issue was that when he needed to pay, Kingston wasn't able to pay up. He and his mother would then send fake wire transfers to pay for the products. However, none of the companies got paid because there was no money. They were fake wire transfers. Kingston and his mother swindled the companies out of more than $1 million worth of products, including a bulletproof Escalade, high-end watches, and a 232-inch LED TV. Agents raided the Florida mansion that he was renting and arrested his mother. Kingston was later arrested. He was actually supposed to go on a tour to the Mojave Desert and perform for the troops over there, but he got arrested before he could do it. The update isn't crazy. It's pretty short, but in August, he was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison, and then he will have 3 years of supervised release. His mother was sentenced to 5 years in prison. She seemed to be a little bit more like the mastermind behind the whole thing. He just had the name that could get the products sent to them. So that's the update. It is not only the beautiful girls that have him suicidal anymore.
Hopefully he doesn't pull an Epstein. I guess we'll see.
I don't think that he has. I don't think he will. I do think though, I don't know what he's gonna do after he gets out, because I don't think that he has a whole lot going for him.
You can go straight back to music, just like 6ix9ine. My next update is Trong My Lan, which we covered on season 16, episode 6 in August of 2024. And where we left off is that Trong My Lan is a Vietnamese property tycoon who laundered an incredible $17.7 billion after stealing $27 billion from the Saigon Commercial Bank, which she bought using shell companies to disguise her 90% stake in the bank, and then used it as a shell bank that funded her massive real estate empire. Her trial saw over 2,000 witnesses called before she was found guilty and sentenced to death in August of 2024. So there have been some big updates since then. In April of this year, Trong My Lan won an appeal which would at least keep her from being executed. See, the death penalty was actually abolished in Vietnam at this time for many offenses, including embezzlement. So her sentence was instead reduced to 30 years, contingent on her paying back 3/4 of the $12 billion that she embezzled, according to the counts of the court. So she now must return $9 billion. Authorities say that her assets are actually valued higher than this amount. So she has more than enough assets to pay $9 billion back. But they are illiquid, so they're going to take a lot of time to liquidate because it's real estate. So they set a lower bar in hopes of recovering more money in the long term. Trong My Lan right now, by the way, is 69 years old. Nice. So while there is some possibility that she sees the outside of a cell again, it's not super likely. technically they said they were going to reduce it. Everyone who was on death row for those crimes where the death penalty was abolished and had not been executed yet, obviously, they were supposed to just change to life in prison. And then I think she got it technically reduced from life to 30 years, but it's basically life.
Well, at that point, it is life, right? Dude, wouldn't that have sucked if you had been like executed like a week before they changed the law?
Yeah. Well, hopefully there'd be like some lead up and they'd be like, well, let's stay executions for a little bit until this bill goes through. I don't know how it works in Vietnam, but I'd hope that they'd be like, or they'd fast track someone and be like, okay, but this one we don't want. This one we want to kill. So they did keep the death penalty for certain much more serious crimes, though. So it's not completely abolished, just for certain offenses.
I'm also curious if they are similar to us, like if people have good behavior, if they get out earlier, things like that.
I'd assume that's probably something everywhere, but
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Hard to say.
Yeah.
Hard to say. All right. Well, speaking of getting out early for good behavior, we'll see if this guy does. Actually, I think I'll save my thought for the end. Okay. This guy, my last and final update is going to be George Santos. We did his episode, season 12, episode 8 of August 2023. So this is one of my favorite episodes to date. And it does have an update. The former congressman, George Santos, weaved a web of lies so intricate that you didn't even know what was true and what wasn't. I honestly cannot wait for the day that this is made into a miniseries or something about him, because the lies are just so outlandish that, like, I mean, he was making them up because they're outlandish, but it's like, really? People said all this shit? George Santos, he loved to lie. He is actually one of the first openly gay Republican congressmen that we've ever had. I said he was the first one, and somebody on TikTok was like, no, he's not, it's so-and-so. And I was like, I don't know, everywhere you look, it says it's George Santos. But he's one of the very few openly gay Republicans that we have or had in office, okay? We don't have very many. A lot of secret ones. Allegedly.
That's why Grindr crashes at every Republican National Convention.
But he is originally from Brazil. There's photographic evidence of him doing drag in Brazil. He will deny that it's him, even though it's very obvious. He also lied that his mother was in the plane crash in 9/11, but it was proven that she was in Brazil at the time. He also lied about being Jewish. And then when he was confronted about it, he reminded everyone that he just said he was Jew-ish, not Jewish. That it was only a little bit of Judaism in him. Now, although most politicians, and some would say all politicians, lie, Santos took it to another level when he started committing crimes. There was the time that Santos was running for House of Representatives and made a plan to falsely report campaign funds to the FEC. He claimed that family members had contributed large amounts to his campaign fund when they hadn't. He also claimed that he himself had loaned the campaign $500,000 when he only had $8,000 in his bank accounts. There was also a time where Santos devised to steal identities and credit card information of people who contributed to his campaign. He would take their credit cards and repeatedly charge them without permission. But then he would conceal the identities of these people so that the FEC wouldn't catch on, so that they didn't know where the money was coming from. For sake of time, I'm just going to kind of shorten all the things he did, but he also committed insurance fraud. He made false statements to the House of Representatives regarding his income and assets, and he had made vastly less than what he was claiming. So, where are we now? So since we aired our episode on Santos, he did plead guilty to wire fraud and aggravated identity theft. He was also ordered to pay restitution prior to his trial, but failed to do so. On April 25th, 2025, George Santos was sentenced to 87 months, which is about 7 years in prison. He is serving his sentence in a prison in New Jersey. Santos did request a pardon from Donald Trump, which has not been granted. However, he may end up getting a pardon.
If he hasn't gotten one already?
I think that Trump, it would not surprise me if when Trump's term nears its end in 2028, it would not surprise me if he does what he did in 2021, where he just pardoned all those people.
To be fair, every president does that. But it's just Trump does it for only evil people. So.
Right. So, and at that point, I think here's the other thing that I noticed, and maybe I'm incorrect on this, and maybe this is just me like making some assumptions, but it seemed to me when Trump was doing the pardons the last time, those people had sat in jail for a little bit. And George Santos had not even gotten there when he had requested the pardon, or he barely had been in there when he requested the pardon. So I think by the time 2028 rolls around, he's going to he would have served about 3.5 years of his sentence, which he might end up getting reduced anyway. So I think that the probability of him getting a pardon might be a bit higher. But it wouldn't shock me if he ended up getting a pardon.
Maybe. Oh, also, point of correction. The first openly gay Republican. It's a little bit of a. It's got an asterisk next to it, which is why you probably always see it as George Santos. But was a man named Steve Gunderson of Wisconsin, who was a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. He was not openly gay when he was arrested when he was elected the first time. He was outed on the House floor, but was then subsequently reelected after he was outed and openly gay. So. And that was he was outed in 1994, and then he was reelected that year. So.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Steve.
So that's technically the first one, but George Santos was the first elected as a non-incumbent, someone who was not already in office.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So the last update we have for you today is Simon Lviv, which is not his real name. Yeah. But I mostly just call him Simon from here on out because I forget his last name. We covered him in season 6, episode 7, in February of 2022. And when we left off, Simon, known as the Tinder swindler from the very popular Netflix documentary that was released that year about his crimes, where he would woo women with a rich boy personality, pretending to be the heir to the Lviv, whatever, diamond fortune, flashing jewelry and private jets. In reality, he was only able to afford these because he defrauded the women he met, the women he met before out of thousands of dollars in a romance-powered Ponzi scheme. At the end of our episode, he had gotten out early from a 15-month sentence after only 5 months. He was released early due to the pandemic and was freely traveling the world. So what's happened since actually happened recently is that Simon, who is an Israeli national, was arrested in September of this year after landing in the country of Georgia, and his arrest was triggered by an extradition treaty with Germany, where they were pursuing multiple fraud charges against Simon. However, just 2 weeks ago, he was released from prison after Germany withdrew the extradition request. According to Simon's lawyers, some of the charges were beyond the statute of limitations, and others lacked evidence to warrant the effort to actually drag Simon to Germany to face trial over them. Mm-hmm. Supposedly, he is now pursuing quote-unquote legitimate business ventures. But what those could be, your guess is as good as mine.
Legitimate business ventures. Okay, dude, yeah, whatever.
Basically, he's trying to be like an actual businessman, like have a family or something. I don't know. Again, I think he still sticks to the story that he was never actually trying to defraud these women and that he was just looking for love, even though he lied to them. He was also getting sued by the Lviv family, who was basically like, "Hey, you're like you used our name, but you are not part of our family." I don't know if they ever actually received recompense for that, but I mean they're literally diamond people, so I don't super care.
Right. They're not good people anyway.
Yeah, they don't need more money, and they are not good people.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But that whole story is just so crazy. I don't know. I can't believe that it went the way that it went. But once again, being poor saved me once again, because I would never have been able to give him as much money as those women did.
Yeah, that's true. That being said, though, if you reached out to Nina and you said, I have a private jet, she would give you all the $500 she has in her bank account. So yeah, hope you enjoyed these little recaps that we threw together so that we can actually take a couple weeks off for the holidays after we just took 4 weeks off before this. We're almost going on as many vacations as our president does. Almost. We're probably not there yet.
Not yet. Nor are they as extravagant.
They're far less extravagant, actually. He's probably not staying with his mom. But yeah, so thank you so much for listening. Why don't you go ahead and drop us a like or a rating or a follow or whatever you got in your podcatchers. That really helps support us. You can also support us by following us on our socials, facebook.com/whitecollarsredhands, X at whitecollarspod, Instagram at whitecollars_redhands. You can also go to our website, whitecollarsredhands.com, click the button that says check out our merch, check out the merch, buy the merch. We get money from, you guessed it, the merch. You can also contact us on there, or if you want to send us an email because you don't want to go to our website, that's fine. I don't care. It's whitecollarsredhands@gmail.com. Recommend an episode like Katie does, and then maybe we'll be talking about your episode in 3 updates 4 years from now. Who knows? You can also support us by telling your friends that there's a podcast you listen to, and not to start with this episode, because that would be a really bad one to start with. Unless you want to find out other episodes you'd be interested in, to go find out. If you want to listen to a whole episode to find other episodes you might be interested, I'm not going to yuck your yum. You do whatever you want. I think I speed ran that. Was that everything? Hell yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much, and happy holidays. We want to say here that we appreciate you being here and you listening to the show, because we've been making this for a long time. So if there was only 3 of you, we probably wouldn't still be making this, but there is more than 3. So we are still making this. 12. Yeah, it was 4 times. 4 times what I said. That's a lot more. That is many times more. Yeah, so thank you so much for listening. And enjoy some eggnog on us, and we'll see you in a couple weeks on another episode of White Collars, Red Hands. Terrible. 0 out of 10 terrible.